I can throw a knuckle. I can throw a drop. I can throw a curve. I don't have much of a slider. If it slides, it does it by accident.
I'll start from the stretch. Come up. What's up, Grit U Nation? I'm Dom Colella. This is Grit U Sports, and I'm here joined by my co-host, Alex Price.
What's up, Grit U? Dom, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
No problem. And my other guy to my left here, Jamie Thompson.
Hey, how's it going, Dom? It's a big day for Grit U today.
It's a big day. We are thrilled to be here with our special guest, former U.S. Congressman and newest president of the Youngstown State University, Mr. Bill Johnson. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Good to be with you guys.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for being on the show. We appreciate letting us into your office here, your nice little home with a great view of the campus.
Absolutely.
No fooling around going on out there.
At least not that we can see.
No. Maybe I've been fooling around there in my past years here, but you weren't here, so we'll move on. So you're back on a campus at YSU. You're living in the Polk House. Does it feel like, your old college self? Have you been to any parties lately? Does it feel like back at Troy, back at Georgia Tech?
Well, it actually goes back a long way before Georgia Tech. It reminds me, and I've told many people here, the first time I stepped foot on Youngstown State's campus, it reminded me of showing up at Troy University in Alabama the first time. I don't know if you know where Troy is. Troy's about 45 miles south of Montgomery. Okay. It's one of the best kept secrets in the South. I know the chancellor there very well. I went through ROTC there. But the look and feel of that campus had a very similar look and feel to here at Youngstown State. There we were the Trojans. Here we're the Penguins, but it's a real family kind of feeling. The campus is nestled close together. Mm-hmm. You can walk anywhere on campus in like 2 minutes, mm-hmm. and get around. But I didn't get to enjoy undergraduate school like many students do because I was already active duty Air Force, and I came from the Air Force to go back to school. And so I showed up and was immediately placed in the role of the Cadet Corps Commander. So I was in a leadership role in ROTC. So I didn't have time to go to many parties and things like that. Plus I had a wife and 2 kids at the time too. Wow. And so we lived in the married student apartments there on campus. But I can't overemphasize how excited we are to be here, and there's a mix of nostalgia and amazement every day that I come to work.
That's great to hear. I mean, I have no girlfriend right now, so I'm definitely not in the marriage housing here at Youngstown State. So it's a little different of my experience and our experiences here. So Alex, I know you got a question for him.
Yeah, so we're very excited to have you here, obviously. But as you said in many interviews in the past couple months, you want people to know who Bill Johnson is. And I think a lot of the interviews have been focused on anything but that. So that's why we're here today. We wanted to get to know you. So can you take us back to the very beginning, your story, your life story, and then to where you are today as our president?
All right, well, cut me off when you need to move on, because it is a long and involved story. Because I started out on a 2-wheel wagon rut mule farm. On the cotton and tobacco farms of North Carolina. Okay. If you've ever seen the movie Terms of Endearment with Sally Fields and Danny Glover, if you've never watched that, go watch it. You'll get a bird's eye view of how I grew up. We farmed with mules up until I was about 13 years old. We had no indoor plumbing. We cooked and heated on 2 big old black pot-bellied stoves. Every day was a survival day. Everybody on that farm worked from sun up until way after sundown, because if you didn't eat. We grew everything, we consumed. We would go to the grocery store about once or twice a month for things like salt and pepper and tea and things that we couldn't grow. But it was a very, very humble beginning. and I wouldn't trade a single day of it for $1 million, because that's the character. That's where I learned service and teamwork and sacrifice and working together to put food on the table. So my mother and my dad didn't get along real well. I won't go into excruciating detail on that. And she spent more time running from my dad than living with him. Consequently, I went to 13 schools in 12 years of high school.
That's crazy.
And she started me to school when I was 5 years old. So we didn't have kindergarten back in those days either. I'm a lot older than you guys.
You're not
So when I graduated from high school, I was only 17 years old.
Wow.
And growing up on that farm, every day was a work day. I was used to working, not necessarily for a living, but sometimes just for survival, because that's what you had to do. But I was used to working. And I worked throughout my high school years. When my mother remarried, we moved to Illinois, the big corn and bean farms and the cattle ranches, cattle farms of the Midwest in Illinois. But when I graduated from high school, I couldn't get a job. I graduated in June, turned 18 in November. By that time, all the good jobs were gone. And so this was 1972. Vietnam was still raging. We were still sending Americans home in body bags. And so over the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays of 72, I went to the Air Force recruiter. I loved airplanes, had always been infatuated with the idea of flying someday. And I said, "Can you help me out?" And he said, "Well, come in and take the test, and we'll see where it goes." Long story short, less than a month later, I joined the Air Force, and never in my wildest imagination dreamed that I would spend nearly 27 years in the Air Force.
Yeah.
I thought I'd go in, get a skill, get a trade, spend my 4 years, exit, get a job, start a family, all that stuff.
So you said you were a pilot. What were you flying?
Well, I was in my enlisted job. I was supposed to go to Vietnam right out of basic training, but the Paris Peace Accords were signed in the 17th day of our training, so they reclassified everybody, and I got really lucky. I got placed in a career field where I taught student pilots how to fly on simulators.
Oh,
Okay.
And
Cool.
maintain the simulators.
Yeah.
It was technically an electronic career field, but the instruction part of it, I knew how to fly, but I didn't actually fly because I instructed them on a simulator.
Okay.
So I wasn't really in the air. And I'd been in the Air Force about 5 years doing that job, stationed at an Air Force base in Columbus, Mississippi, where they do pilot training. And my boss called me in one day and said, "Look, I'm going to put you in for an award, but we need you to be able to show some self-improvement, that you're trying to increase your value to the Air Force. Go to the education office and find out what they have to offer night college classes." I said, "Oh, whoa, that is not for me. I am not college material." He said, "I didn't ask you to go. I told you to get your butt over there and do it today." And I went. That's when I found out that my technical school and all of my upgrade training in my career specialty, I had 2 years of college under my belt that I didn't even know I had.
Wow. Yeah, that's impressive.
And so the Air Force had drawn down its pilot corps more than it anticipated to after Vietnam. And so this was 1976 by that point. And so they needed pilots. And I just happened to be at the right place at the right time. They said, "Hey, we're going to send you back to school to get an undergraduate degree in computer science, and you're going to pilot training." And my life really changed then. I flew T-37s for a little while. They offered me helicopter pilot training, and one of the worst professional decisions I ever made was turning it down.
Yeah.
I wish I had done it because I wanted to fly fixed wing. I'm a people person.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I wanted to fly something with a big crew. I wanted to fly B-52s or C-130s like they fly over here at Youngstown Air Reserve
Yeah,
Base.
those are always coming straight over my house.
Yeah.
That's right. Safest airplane in the Air Force inventory, by the way. You can't knock those things out of the sky. Yeah, they're very, very safe. So I developed an inner ear problem, and so back in those days, if you couldn't fly everything, they wouldn't let you fly anything.
Okay.
So I didn't fly very long in the Air Force. They grounded me because my inner ears could not handle the high G maneuvers of fighter pilot, Top Gun kind of flying.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't work.
What was the rush like though of flying? Because I have a cousin in the Air Force and he flies F-16s. And
Oh my
it seems so cool.
Well, it is really, really cool, and everything. If you've ever seen the movie Top Gun, and the old one, the original, and the new one, it's very much like that.
Wow.
It really, really
Okay.
is. I mean, it is an adrenaline rush like you've never seen when you hit that throttle. And you feel the afterburners kick in on an F-16 or an F-15 or an F-22 or an F-35 now in today's inventory. It is an unbelievable feeling when that seat jerks you back.
Almost like you're on a roller coaster.
Oh yeah, yeah. And so my dreams of flying faded, and they put me in communications and computer systems. I ended up being a software engineer for much of my officer career. And then my last two assignments commanded the Air Force's largest communications unit in the United States at Eglin Air Force Base in Florida, and then ended up being the Chief Information Officer staff at Special Operations Command, where I worked with Navy SEALs and Special Forces and Marines and some of our nation's most unbelievable elite troops. So, but I still fly today. I have an instrument rating.
Okay.
Had my own airplane up until 2018. It needed a new engine. I couldn't afford to put one in it, so I sold it thinking I would buy another one. And then COVID hit, and what happened with used cars also happened with used airplanes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh yeah, they went through the roof. I paid around $70,000 for my first airplane. Sold it for 90, I believe, as the price began to increase. Now today, you could not buy that same airplane for less than $250,000.
Oh, wow.
And so yeah, it went way up.
Yeah.
So, but I still love to
Yeah.
fly.
Yeah.
Were you maintaining that airplane, but yourself?
No. I did not do the maintenance on
Okay.
it. You have to be certified as a certified by the FAA maintenance technician to
Okay.
be able to do that. So you have to get that kind of, and you have to get them inspected every year. What's called an annual, whether they need them or not. Yeah, I mean, you can set it in the hangar and never fly it, but 12 months later, you've got to take it to a mechanic and let
inspect
them
it.
Yeah.
do their stuff.
It's just pretty impressive that you fly, because the only thing we do on airplanes is kick our seats back, have our neck pillows on, and that's where our free chips
Well,
and
that's
water are at.
well, and my wife would add one to that. I snore, so she's constantly elbowing me because I feel very comfortable flying. So it's a restful place for
Yeah.
me.
Well, at least you guys can all relax on it, because when I'm on airplanes, I get very queasy. You know, I'm unable to do it. I wish I could, because
I should take you flying sometime. We could work that out.
yeah, you think so? Okay.
I'd love
I'd
to
be
see
willing
that.
to give it a shot.
I'd love to
Twists
see
and
that.
turns of the air.
Oh,
Yeah.
smart. Okay. Well, you talked about how you've kind of been everywhere, right? I've heard North Carolina. I think you said Illinois, Florida. How did you end up here in Youngstown?
Believe it or not, my wife is the Ohio connection. She and I met in 1997 when I was still on active duty down at MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa, Florida, heading up the CIO staff for Special Operations Command. She and I met at the same little church. 7 years later, we got married, 2004. And I had been in business for myself since I retired from the Air Force at that point. From 1999 through 2004, I was in business for myself. So when we got married, I didn't want to stay on the road all the time. I wanted to be at home, and that's just, I'm a family guy. That's just where I wanted to be. So I took a job as a consultant with Lockheed Martin at MacDill Air Force Base, and I was fat, dumb, and happy. Get a call one day from a headhunter and they said, hey, we got a company in Northeast Ohio, in Trumbull County, Warren, Ohio,
Okay.
that's looking for a chief information officer. Would you be interested in talking to them? Well, my wife is from Ohio, about 2.5 hours south of here, down around Marietta, a little town called Belpre, actually.
Okay. Yep.
That's where her family originates. And so the same time that I get a job offer to come to Warren, Ohio, her mother tells her, we're moving back to Ohio, and we've got her only grandson. And
Okay.
so it was just a fit. So we come to Ohio in 2006, and I was the chief information officer for a global manufacturing company up in Warren, and then the political bug bit. Somebody suggested that I run for Congress, and I thought they were nuts because I had never done anything like that before.
Yeah.
And the rest is history.
Yeah, wow. That's good to hear. It's always interesting to me how people end up here because I was born here. Me and him were both raised here. He's a little bit, south of us?
Yeah, New Philly, Ohio.
Oh,
Part-
know
part-
exactly where it is.
Yeah, you
I
were-
made the decision to run for Congress at a Bob Evans in New Philadelphia.
Okay. Oh, wow.
I know where that's at. Look at that.
What is so special about doing it to Bob Evans?
That's where the consultant my political consultant, who's one of my best friends today, he had worked in the Reagan administration, and I didn't know anything about politics, and I met him through a series of circumstances, and I said, look, you got to help me make this decision, whether this is the right thing for us or not. And we met over lunch at a Bob Evans in New Philadelphia, because he lived in Columbus, I lived in Poland, and we triangulated, came over to
I know
New
right where
Philly.
it's at. I've been there plenty of times.
Yeah.
You probably sat in the same booth or
Probably
table.
so.
Hopefully.
Probably
Yeah.
so.
Wow.
We call it Bob Heavens. We call
Bob Evans. I can relate to that. My wife and I usually go to Bob Evans. I don't know if I should say this on the audio. The other restaurants around town will be upset. But we go to the Bob Evans quite often after church on Sundays over in Canfield.
Hey, it's a staple. You know what I mean? You can't
It
not
is.
love a Bob
Yeah.
Evans. Whenever I go on
Exactly.
vacation with my family, it's always, where's the Bob Evans we're going to stop at to eat?
Well, I'm a creature of habit, so what do you order when you go to Bob Evans?
omelet.
Sunrise special, man. Sunrise special.
Really?
2 eggs over medium, bacon, hash browns, whole wheat toast with
Okay.
strawberry jelly.
That's
Like,
like,
do
my,
they-
that's
do
like
they-
my dad, you know?
Oh, yeah?
Eggs, bacon, your regular breakfast food. I'm getting like a chocolate chip waffle or something. Maybe a side of hash
With
browns.
sprinkles.
Yeah.
Sir, would you like a menu? No, I already know. I already
They
know.
probably know you well enough. As soon as you walk in, they say, okay, we'll get it started.
I
for
don't
you."
know that they do yet, but they're getting close.
Yeah.
They're getting close.
Wow. Wow. Well, firstly, we want to thank you for your service, all of us here at Gritusports. That's something very special to do. Not everybody is really able to answer that call of duty. But going beyond that, you talked about deciding to run for Congress. What was the ultimate motivation behind that? Was there almost a little portion in the back of your head that's like, hey, this is another opportunity to serve my country?
Look, this job at Youngstown State is my 6th major career shift in my life, and they've all been totally different. And I told the Board of Trustees here when we went through the interview process, I've never had a job in my life where I knew what I was doing on day one. Never, ever. It was learning fast. And so I grew to have a love for our country when I served in the Air Force. I was always patriotic growing up as a kid. I stood along a roadway. You guys can't relate to this because you're so much younger than I am, but I stood beside a roadway out in the country in the early 60s and saw President John F. Kennedy and his wife ride by. I was as close as these lighting stands to the President of the United States,
Wow.
and I was just awestruck,
Yeah.
That was shortly before he went to Texas and Dallas, and we all know what happened
Yeah.
when he went there. But I've always been patriotic, and then when I joined the Air Force and I saw the teamwork and the commitment, and it takes a special person to walk into a job today and know that you might be going around a corner that you might not come back from, and you never dwell on those thoughts. It's country, it's God first, it's country, it's family, it's friends, and then you worry about yourself. I learned a code of conduct. I learned a code of ethics. We had core values, integrity first. That means you keep your word. You do what you say you're going to do. Service before self. That means your personal desires come after your job, your family, God, and country. And then excellence in all that we do. Learn your job well. Do it right the first time, because we might not have a chance to do it the second time, and doing it wrong the first time could get somebody killed. So you want to be the best you can be every single day. And those were the core values that I grew up with. And so when I left the Air Force to go into business for myself, I took those values with me. That's how I built my companies. That's how I ended up working for Lockheed Martin. And when I came here as a chief information officer for that global manufacturing company, I brought those same core values there. And I think what the Air Force taught me, in that instilled in me a heart of service, plays a major role in what developed my leadership style. It's a very collaborative, listening, learning leadership style. There is no I in team. A leader cannot accomplish the mission by themselves. You've got to motivate and inspire people. And if you can't do that, you don't need to be in a leadership position. And so whether it was, and that's how I ran my congressional office too, by the way. So when they asked me to consider running for Congress, and I thought they were crazy, I knew if my country ever called that I would want to serve again. And but I didn't know how that call would come, or if it would come. And when it did, I was amazed. I remember in the election in 2010, standing in our living room over in Poland. My family was all there. Everybody that had helped me throughout the election cycle were there. And when that green check box lit up with my name and the race was called and I was named the incoming congressman for the 6th District of Ohio, I'll never forget the look on my oldest son's face. He was at that time, God, that's been a long time ago, but he turned and looked at me and he said, "Holy blank, Dad, what in the hell have you done?" Right?
Oh,
And it was almost surreal.
Yeah.
Right over there on that desk, that photo of me in the red vest, that's the night that I was
wow.
elected. That's my oldest son and my 2 older daughters.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Sporting the trestle vest for the
Sporting that trust me. And the people here probably are beginning to say he needs to get some new clothes. I use that vest a lot.
Well, it looks like a good one.
Yeah.
Kind of piggybacking off that, so in 2020 you published a book called Raising Fathers. Obviously you're a family man, and in the book you cited that like 50 years ago 1 in 5 children were raised in a fatherless home, and now it's 1 in 4. You called it like an epidemic. So like, tell us about the process of writing that book and why it's so important to you to do that.
Well, that's a little bit of a story too. So you tell me when you want me to stop.
Yeah,
The
good.
genesis of that book, in 1996, I was at Eglin Air Force Base, and a totally different story, and we're not going to go into those details. But I was divorced in 1992, and so my children lived in Montgomery, Alabama. I get a call from my oldest daughter in January of 1996, and she said, "Dad, I'm pregnant," and she's a senior in high school. Well, no father wants to get that phone call because now her childhood was going to be totally different than what I, as her dad, had planned for it to be. Many people, some of them to my disappointment in our circle, tried to convince her that having an abortion was the right thing to do. That's not our faith. That wasn't hers. It's not mine. And she decided to have the baby, and I was glad to support her in that effort, in that journey. But I did not want her to have anything to do with the birth father. I didn't like him.
Okay.
I didn't trust him. He came from the, I don't want to say the wrong side of the tracks, because I come from the other side of the tracks. But he was a ninth grade dropout from school. I didn't think he could support her. He struggled with substance abuse and anger problems, and so I just saw it as a dead end for her. But she said no. She said, Dad, this is his child too, and I can't walk away from that. And I respected her decision, but I was weary. So after my grandson Austin was born in September of 1996, something happened. A switch flipped in the life of Austin's dad. And all of a sudden, he started walking different. He started talking different. He started acting different. He started going to church. We had always been a faith-based family. He started taking my daughter to church. She told me, she said, Dad, I'm not going to marry him right away. She said, but I'm encouraged by some of this stuff that I see. Jeff eventually found his faith. My brother played a big role in bringing him along on that journey. And in September of 2000, I walked her down the aisle, and she and Jeff got married. One of the most special days of my life. I sang a song at the reception, Butterfly Kisses. I don't know if you've ever heard that song. If you never look it up.
Okay.
Look it up. It's the song of a dad to his daughter.
You sang it.
I sang it. I'm a vocalist too.
Okay,
We can talk
impressive.
about that sometime.
And you do it all. You do it all.
Play guitar too. And so,
There you
they got married. This is going somewhere. I'll get to the book. On February 1st, 2001, I'm back in Denver, Colorado, running my businesses. I get a call at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's 2 o'clock in the morning in Alabama. And my youngest daughter's on the phone, and she said, Dad, have you heard from Julie? And I said, no. I said, what's going on? She said, well, there's been a fire at Julie and Jeff's apartment, and Julie is with Josh and Michaelin. That's my son and his wife. She's not in that photograph. Okay. Michaelin's not in that photograph. But we can't find Jeff and Austin. She said, call Michaelin and see if you can get a hold of Julie. So I called my daughter-in-law's telephone, and it was her that told me that a fire had raged through that apartment building. Julie got out, but my son-in-law and grandson were both killed. Wow. They had woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock their time, and the entire building was engulfed in flames, and my son-in-law made my daughter jump from a third-story window. She jumped, fell down, dropped down, and he went down the hallway to try and rescue my grandson, and he didn't make it. So in my faith journey, and I've been a strong Christian since I was about 10 years old. That's a different story. We can talk about that too if y'all want to. But I asked God a lot of questions. Why take my 4-year-old grandson? And why take his dad who just got his life together? Why? Yeah. And it took a long time for the answer to come. And the answer became the book. Because what happens is every time there's a young teenage girl or young woman, whatever her age, that becomes pregnant, there's a young man out there, most of the time a young teenage boy, that's going to be a dad. The girl's parents don't want to have anything to do with the guy because he's kind of plucked the flower before it's fully bloomed, and they're mad at him. His parents don't want to have anything to do with the situation because now his parents have got to accept probably financial responsibility for something that they hadn't planned for, and they're ready to get on with their retirement years. So everybody's in conflict, and so often these boys walk away. And you wind up with these millions and millions of girls that were in my daughter's shoes that are in single mother homes with no father figures. And it's epidemic in inner cities, particularly among minority families. And I thought, what if we could get a hold of these young men when they find out that they're going to be a dad, and help them understand, you might not ever marry this girl. That may not be in the cards for you, but you're never going to be able to deny the fact that you fathered a child. Mm-hmm. And you can be a dad, and we can help you with that. And so that began the thought process. How do we raise up fathers in this generation? And I'm telling you right now, that problem is one of the biggest problems that we've got in America today, is the number of children that are growing up in fatherless homes all across this country. God put this thing called humanity together like a puzzle. The first institution that he designed and created was the family, not the church, not government. It was the family. It takes a father, it takes a mother to raise a family. And, we don't, and there's something that both of them provide that the other cannot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's quite an impressive story.
Sure.
And, obviously, sorry about your grandson and son-in-law. That's terrible. But, I mean, just very interesting to see how you came to that book. And I agree that I think it's a huge issue in this country.
It is.
And obviously, you're doing a lot of diligent work to help with that. And that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, us three of us being men and probably wanting to, have wives when we're older and sons and daughters, we love that you putting that out. It's important for us, so it's important to you. So we like that. Piggybacking off family, we are Gritusports. This is a Gritusports show. We talk about sports at Youngstown State. I started Gritusports because I thought Youngstown athletics, wasn't getting the media publicity they should have. A lot of sports that have been great here and the athletes that have been great here may not have got, their share of the limelight. So, but you have a history and relationship with sports here at YSU. Your son is a freestyle swimmer here, and you have a nephew on the baseball team.
Right.
So what's it like being the president of Youngstown State in the university that, you have family playing sports at?
I don't know. You probably need to ask them that question instead of me. 'Cause for me, it's pretty cool. I get to go hang out at the pool when I want to. I can't be told you can't be on the pool deck, right? I can go watch if I want to, but I don't. I let both of those boys, my son and my nephew, I let them live and experience college life without dad or uncle, interfering. So they know that I'm here if they need me. I show up at their games. I show up at their swim meets. I spend a lot of time with both of them. We were at the indoor track and field championships a few weeks ago, and hung out. The last Saturday, we were at the Watts with my brother, my son, and my nephew. We were practicing golf trick shots, how to mold a shot, how to hit a fade, how to hit a draw, and those kinds of things. And so, because we all love golf, and but it's a pretty awesome thing.
Yeah, that's great. You like baseball. So,
I love baseball.
So I know, from the South. I know Jamie has a question from the South, being from the South.
Grew up in the South, right? It's what sounded like it was North Carolina, and then were you in Mississippi as well?
I did. I was, yeah. In Mississippi, I graduated from high school in Mississippi. My mother remarried in between my freshman and sophomore year, and she married a guy in the Air Force, and that's what took us from North Carolina to Illinois. When my stepfather, we were there for 3 years. Halfway through my senior year, he comes back from Vietnam, and we wind up in Mississippi. And that's where I actually graduated from high school.
Okay. Wow.
I went most of my high school in Illinois, little rural farm, 240 kids in the whole school, 42 in my graduating class. Everybody knew everybody, so you didn't want to mess up because everybody would know it before the next bell rang.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I played Little League baseball for the first time at 12 years old because, as I told you earlier, my mother moved around a lot. I didn't get to play sports as a kid much because we were always picking up from one place and going to somewhere else. I played football when I was in the 7th grade in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
I'd imagine that's special.
And they made me a nose guard on defense, right? I'm less than 100 pounds and as big as my pinky, and he makes me a nose guard. And I got a flag called on me because I was quick. And so as soon as I would see the centers, I was right under the center, and as soon as I would see his hand tighten around the ball, I'd slap the ball, and so it caused a lot of fumbles, but the ref finally said, you can't do that.
Oh, geez.
I said, okay.
So you had the happy feet. You get around.
I had happy feet, yeah.
You and I have a lot in common in the younger days. I used to play catcher when I was younger, and then I also played nose tackle as well. Then I grew and I thinned out, so they moved me off. I started to play the outfield and outside linebacker, stuff like that. But is baseball, because you played in the congressional games, we talked about that a little bit earlier. Is that the sport that really kind of grabs your heart?
Well, it does. It does because it was the one thing that I could do and do well. I said I played Little League for the first time at 12 years old, but that only lasted for a couple of years. Once my mother remarried and we moved to Illinois, those big corn and bean farm schools, I went to a small rural high school, but that didn't come for a while. When I was a freshman and sophomore in high school, the baseball teams were guys that really knew how to play the game. And I just did not feel, I didn't have the confidence to play. When I was a sophomore, though, I was on the football team, and I was the meat squad quarterback. You know what that is. And we were at practice one day, and I did a halfback rollout pass that I was going to throw the ball to the halfback in the flats. And we had a defensive tackle named Scott Gebler. This guy was 6'8", 275 pounds as a sophomore in high school.
Oh my goodness.
Nicest guy you would ever want to meet. He was also the center on the varsity basketball team.
Okay.
Smart as a whip, wouldn't hurt a fly. But he hit me from behind, and the next thing I knew, my face mask is broken on my helmet.
Oh, gosh.
My face is in the mud. And before I even picked myself up, I said, this is not the sport for you. And so I finished the season, and then at Christmas time of my sophomore year, we moved out to that little bitty rural high school. They didn't have enough students in the school to have a football team, so they had 2 baseball seasons.
Oh, wow.
They played a baseball season, 20-game series in the spring, and a 20-game series in the fall.
Wow.
And so I got to play baseball the equivalent of 4 years in just 2.5 years.
That's awesome.
And I fell in love with it because I was good at baseball. I was a middle infielder. I didn't start catching until and pitcher. I pitched some too, but I didn't start catching until my senior year. The last season I was there, our only catcher was hurt in a farming accident, and our coach called our team together and he said, look guys, if we don't find somebody that can get behind the plate and stop the ball, we're not going to have a season. So we dedicated a whole practice to nothing but putting people behind the plate with the gear on. And I had been bat blind in Little League. I had thought when I was younger that I wanted to catch because Johnny Bench was my hero.
Okay.
I loved to watch
that's
Johnny Bench play.
good hero.
A guy that could, from a squatting position, pick you off at first base. You know, I wanted to be able to do that. And I never picked anybody off, but it happened to me a couple of times the other way. And so, but I found out my bat blindness was gone, so I moved behind the plate, and I never came back out.
Wow.
In the Air Force, they wouldn't let you play baseball. They'd make you play fast pitch softball. And so I caught fast pitch softball for years. And when I got to Congress, when I got there in 2011, I thought this congressional baseball game, I said, God, this has got to be a joke. And I went to the game and I said, oh my God. I didn't even play my first year. Second year, I came out, and it was an unbelievable experience.
Did you get to catch?
Huh?
You got to catch?
Yeah, I caught for 12 years.
That's
Yeah,
impressive.
12 seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah. So our manager, when I left, in fact, I talked to him over the weekend to wish him happy Easter. Played with the Atlanta Braves and was the head coach at TCU.
Wow.
And the stadium there at TCU is named after him. And he and I got lots of good baseball stories
Yeah.
to tell you.
A lot of studs on that
Yeah.
congressional team.
We have some. Now, it hasn't always been that way. We used to get shellacked. My team, the Republicans, used to get shellacked because the Democrats had a pitcher that had pitched with, I want to say BYU, if I'm not mistaken. I know he was originally from Louisiana. His name was Cedric Richmond, and he would bring it.
Yeah.
I mean, he would bring it, and he had a slider, he had a curveball, and nobody could hit him. Well, I could hit him. I'm not telling you I got a base hit every time, but I never struck out.
Okay.
I can put the bat on the ball.
Oh, that's impressive numbers, you know.
Yeah, I never struck out. I might ground out, might pop out, but I never struck out. And I would tell people, Cedric Richmond never beat us. You know, we scored enough runs to win the ball game because all it takes is one.
Yeah.
When you give the other team, 6 to 9 outs an inning, you're never going to win. And so when Roger got there, he and I transformed the philosophy of the team. And we said, look, we're going to put the best 9 players on the team. This is not a Sunday afternoon, Sunday social picnic, baseball pickup game.
We're trying to win.
Yeah,
We're
we're
out
here to
here. We got 30,000 people in the stands. It's now carried on Fox.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
It's in the National Stadium, right?
It's in Washington National Stadium.
So did you
Yeah.
feel you felt like you finally made the major leagues?
I found it was an unbelievable experience
With
to
the
walk
atmosphere
out
just
on
so
that
cool.
field and squat down behind the plate at a Major League Baseball stadium and hear the fans start yelling your name. It is an unbelievable
Yeah, wow.
experience.
It's incredible.
I mean, once in a lifetime. I guess you did it 12 times,
I
but
did, yeah.
it's still pretty cool. Not many
Yeah.
people, obviously.
Well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make this happen. I don't know if the NCAA will even allow it, but I'm working on the idea of having the Penguins go to Washington, D.C. this summer and volunteer to tune up both teams.
Okay.
We'll be bipartisan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll play the Democrats in the morning, we'll play the Republicans in the afternoon, and then they can go the next day and play each other.
Yeah. Wow. That'd be
And,
incredible.
have a
That'd be
scrimmage,
something
take our
special.
team.
Get those teams ready and maybe get the level of play up even higher.
Who knows?
right.
Is
Who
it getting
knows?
pretty competitive in those games?
Very
So
competitive.
it's not like
Very
they're
competitive.
not soft throwing at the people.
It is not soft. It is
They're-
not soft throwing it. It is for real. It is for real baseball. That picture right there, that's Steve Scalise.
Okay.
That's my son sliding into second base.
Wow.
Nathan would practice stealing bases, and we would practice trying to throw him out.
Yeah, wow.
Because he was really fast. And
That's
Well,
awesome.
it looks like you got him. If you threw that ball, you had him dead to right.
I'm not sure who threw that one, but it was likely me.
Yeah.
So was there any trash talking going on at the game?
Well, absolutely there was. I mean, as the catcher, I would jaw jack with the batters when they come. I mean, have you ever seen Major League?
We've seen it.
Of
We've
course.
seen it.
1,000 times.
What's his name? The actor Behringer, Tom Behringer played the catcher. And he was all the time. Like I'd ask the batter, what'd you have for dinner last night? And I don't remember. Well, your wife and I had this, and none of that was true, of course, but they would get a chuckle out of it, and the umpire would laugh. But
That reminds me of The Sandlot. You ever seen The Sandlot?
Yeah.
The kid behind the plate. Is that your sister out in center field?
the only problem here is it really might be. The Democrats had a female player from I want to say her name was Linda, because there were 2 sisters in Congress from California, the Sanchez sisters, and I think it was Linda that played on the baseball team. you could not strike her out.
Wow.
And we knew where she was going to hit it every time, and it did not matter. She would still put it through the needle,
Wow.
like a threading a needle, right between first and second base, just over their heads, but you could not strike her out.
And it sounds like this game was pretty awesome to be in.
Was there any storming of the mound, any scuffles?
No, none of that stuff. Everything was pretty tame. The most negative crisis moment, of course, for the Congressional Baseball program that I'm aware of was in 2017 when the shooter shot up the Republican practice and shot 4 people, including Steve Scalise, who was almost killed, and still struggles with recovering from those injuries. It's been a long journey, but what a phenomenal human being he is. Strong guy.
Yeah,
I remember that. But.
And interesting, this is really neat. The year after he was hurt, obviously he was in the hospital and was in intensive care for a long time. The next year in the Congressional Baseball game, we all agreed that he was going to start the game because he was our second baseman. And so we put him at second base, and the idea was he would play the first batter, and then he would come out, the stands the fans would recognize him. First batter, first pitch, hits a line drive grounder right straight to Steve Scalise. He picks it up, falls to his knees because he can't move very well, and throws the guy out at first base. That place went absolute. You couldn't have written a fairy tale.
What a moment.
Wow.
What a
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, you go back and look. You go back through the archives, YouTube it.
Yeah.
and go back. You'll see it. Yeah.
That is fantastic. I mean, what are the odds? First batter, he's just gonna be out there. He's gonna hang out. Play second base. But he gets a ball hit to him, and he's ready for it.
Everybody's chin dropped. Nobody could believe that happened.
That's
Well, it feels
amazing.
like stuff like that always kind of happens in sports. Like if you remember when the pitcher for the Marlins died a few years back, first at bat for the Marlins after that, they hit a home run. The situation with DeMar Hamlin when he died on the field resuscitated him. Next game in Buffalo, kickoff return to the house. It just seems like those miracles always happen.
Sports has a way of lifting people's spirits when you think the chips are down. Somebody comes up and excels.
Yeah, that's what we like to do here with Grit U Sports. And our message, this account of Grit U Sports, reaches a lot of our students, a lot of our student athletes, some alumni and their family. A lot of these kids, young kids our age, we don't watch the news, really. We get our news from Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. So a lot of the interviews or media stuff coming out about you, we're not seeing. The students are not seeing. So if you have a message to the students, a message to the student athletes, anyone involved in Youngstown State campus, what's your message to them, and what's your vision for Youngstown State, not just now but in the future?
Sure. Well, I want everybody that goes to school here to know why. You've seen the logo. I want them to know why this is such an amazing place. Penguins are a family. If you've seen documentaries on our native animal penguin friends, how do they survive in the Arctic weather? Against 30 and 40 degree, hurricane force winds blowing against them. They gather in these huddles, thousands of them with their backs to the outside, facing the inside. There's a phenomenon that occurs inside that huddle. There's a wave that begins to work its way through. Nobody knows. Scientists do not know who gives the signal, but one of them does, and they begin this movement, and it moves the inner part of the circle out, moves the outer part of the circle in, and everybody takes their turn on the outside, and everybody gets a chance to get inside where it's warm and safe, right? That's the way it is here at Youngstown State. And what I would tell all of our athletes, students and athletes, no matter what sport you're playing or what your major is, if you live by the core values that I grew up with, be true to yourself, be true to your word, meet the commitments that you make. That's called integrity first. Service before self. think of the person sitting next to you or walking along beside you or your teammate. Think of them first and what your contribution to that person may be that will change their life today. And then excellence in all that we do. Give your best at everything you're going to do, whether it's your studies or your sport or whatever you want to do. You want to look back on this time and know why you were here.
Yeah.
And you were here for a reason. Our nation is not like other great nations. Our president can't resign and cancel the Constitution and abolish the legislature, pick new dates for elections, and start this great experiment all over again. Your generation, guys, you're going to take the reins of leadership, and it's coming a lot sooner than you think. People like me, we're going to go rocking chair, but you're going to be in charge. And every generation has the responsibility and the challenge to write the next great chapter of our nation's history. What do you want it to say? And what do you want that chapter to write about you? And what did you learn at Youngstown State University that prepared you to meet the challenges of your day? That's my vision for Youngstown State University. And I want students all over the world to know why this is the special place to come to.
That's fantastic. You know, us to be ready to start our careers here soon. You know, Youngstown State proud. You know, we love Youngstown State. That's why we come here. That's why we stayed here.
Yeah.
That's why I stayed here. That's why I created Gritusports to show off Youngstown State University and athletics. But President Johnson, we want to thank you for your time. You know, we love being here. We love picking your brain. You know, hearing you talk. You know, getting that Southern drawl out of you. You know, Alex, you got anything to add?
I just want to thank you, President Johnson. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, guys. I want to shout out my boss, Chuck George. He got this set up for us. Great boss, better man, and it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun.
Chuck's a good friend.
Jamie, anything from you?
I just, you know, this was an incredible experience. It was really good to get to talk to you, and excited for everybody to see this interview, shed some light.
Fantastic.
Well, good to see you.
Yeah, as again, I'm John McClellan, but I'm going to give it away to President Bill Johnson to close us out.
You bet. Well, hi, I'm President Bill Johnson, and Gritusports approves this message.